it's 9 o'clock.
Oh, we have a computer. Yep. Wow, I feel much better.
Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gotta slow down.
Well, it's one nation under God, it's not. One nation.
Mr.
Good
Chair.
morning. Good morning. It's Wednesday, November 8th, 2017. It is 9 a.m. This is a workshop for the Curry County Board of Commissioners. It was at Commissioner Boyce's, as I recall correctly, request. The prior meeting moved up an hour. To my left, we have Administrator Hitt, Commissioner Gold, myself, Commissioner Huxley. To my right, Commissioner Boyce, County Council Huddle, and to his far right, the administrative clerk for the meetings, John Jesuit.
Mr. Chair, may I offer something?
Hang on just a second, please. We have, quickly then, Commissioner Boyce.
I'd like to offer at least 1 minute of silence for the folks that were murdered in New York and also the folks that were murdered in Texas last Sunday in the church.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes, it would definitely be okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Board.
Okay. Item 2 on this agenda is basically an adoption. This is a workshop, adoption amendments of the agenda. I think last time it was Commissioner Gold, then we'll go with Commissioner Boyce this morning. Commissioner Boyce.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. No, I have no amendments other than if you want an official request to reverse the 2 items we have.
Okay.
I'd be glad to recommend that.
Okay. Are you okay with that, Commissioner Gold?
Yeah, I'm fine. I just hate to see employees sitting here
Okay,
for hours.
Did you have any other? Do you have any
No.
amendments? Okay. Administrator Hitt, do you have any?
No, I'm good. Thank you, sir.
Okay. County Council, anything?
No, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Then none. Okay, then we will proceed. We're going to flip or reverse item 3, which is the House Bill loaning road funds, which is here at 3. We're going to, and 4 is the public records request. We're going to switch those 2. So I'm seeing the roadmaster out there. Were you here for the road discussion? Well, you need to educate yourself in the public records so you can listen to that also, or not.
He's not
So-
going to be here very long.
Okay, just for silence. Okay, so we're going to move then, and we're going to move item 4 to 3 and 3 to 4. So item, what is now 3, is public records request policy, possible revisions, and open that to Administrator Hitt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. You have, as part of your agenda packet, besides a memo, kind of summarizing a variety of issues, which I'll go over here in a minute. And unfortunately, it didn't print out very well in your copies, but there is a draft proposal that after my memo, that would be the proposed new public records policy, and then after that you have the current public records policy. So I apologize that on the computer the draft came out real clear. It didn't come out clear in printed copies. But at any rate, the proposed policy is the first one. Unfortunately, there's not a difference in the title there. And then the second one is the current policy. So just to, a brief overview, the current public records policy was adopted in January of 2012, and that policy divides the responsibility of responding to public records requests, i.e. public records custodians, among 21 different public records custodians, which I think just first and foremost is a little confusing for the public. In addition, the current policy makes no mention of and has no role for the county administrator. Second, the current policy assigns the responsibility of finding, charging, delivering public documents to a wide variety of individuals who, with certain exceptions, have not received adequate, at least in my view, adequate training on the public records policy, both at the state requirements as well as our local ordinance. The current policy does not require a final county council review prior to the release of public records. My new draft policy does require that. And therefore, I think the current policy leaves the county with somewhat greater possibility of exposure to unauthorized release of what would be considered confidential or potentially confidential material. Briefly, some of the new policy features are, I would have the authority to appoint a single public records custodian for the county, and then each office, and then I in turn could appoint in each office a public records manager. So that's outlined in Part 3 of the draft document. The draft document also requires a preliminary response to the person turning in the request, and sometimes responses could be obviously much less than this if it's something relatively quick and simple. But if it's not a preliminary response to public record inquiries in not more than 7 business days. It also defines what we're going to charge for public records research, public records that are not fairly readily and quickly assessed. That's better defined in the draft policy, and that's in Part 5. And then the current policy, or the draft policy, the proposed policy also requires final delivery with obviously certain exceptions, but generally final delivery to the public records requester within 20 business days. So those are the chief differences, not the only differences. I attempted also to, in the new draft policy, to kind of structure things so they're a little clearer, a little more step-by-step, whereas at least I found the current policy a little bit confusing in a couple places of how it's worded and put together. So I attempted to clarify some of the wording and make it a somewhat simpler policy, although it would have to be recognized that the state law is very complicated on this subject, and so it's not something that can lend itself at the local level of policy to something relatively quick and short and simple. Just the nature of the beast is it is complicated. So that, in summary, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, is my overview of what I see as the shortcomings of the current policy, as well as the advantages or benefits of revising that with the new policy.
Commissioner Boyce, I think we'll start again. We'll go with questions that way back
Okay.
today. Commissioner Boyce?
Just a quick
Questions or
question,
comments?
clarification. Did you say a 20-day or 25-day response?
20 business days.
20 business days. That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other? Commissioner Gold?
Good work.
I had a couple of questions. Routine requests, I didn't ever see it defined, and you might want to make sure that that's defined, because routine to some people is different than routine to others.
Okay, all right. We can do
And then another part, the fee estimate.
that. Yes.
I'm thinking, should this be more general because it's a policy rather than specific amounts, or I don't know, maybe that's,
You know, I thought of that, and normally I would agree with you, and I normally don't like to call out fees in a policy just because that can be such a moving target. So I kind of wrestled with that one, and I could certainly be comfortable in going with either way. I thought the advantage of calling them out here, and obviously that it would require to be updated every once in a while, certainly not every year, but is that then there's no question somebody coming in and want to see our policy, then well, what is the county council going to charge? What is the hourly research charge? So I just thought for clarity's sake, it was nice to have it here.
well, maybe we should have something in there that the fees will be updated
Oh, okay.
every
And
so
we
often
could certainly
or
do
something
that.
like that.
Yeah, add that language. Okay.
Those were my only two big questions. And then the time frames all fit in with the state law, I would assume, like the 7 days.
Pretty
and-
sure. I did.
That's the problem.
Oh, we don't quite. Okay. All right.
think
Well, I
that-
think I'm at least close.
No, when
Okay.
you mentioned
Yeah.
state law,
Yeah.
that's part of the problem.
Yeah, I think we need to be real careful. that-
Right, and I'll go
like
back
the
and-
7 days, I'm not sure whether it should be 5 or 7, because
Yeah.
I'd heard 5 and.
Yeah, I just, well.
So I
and
think we
may
need to
say
check on
I
that
just,
before we-
You know, my thought is, obviously if we have to conform, if that is the state law, I just personally think if it is 5 business days, that's kind of unreasonable. You know, somebody drops something in on Monday and wants it by Friday afternoon. I mean, in many situations, it's not unreasonable, but it can be if it's a detailed, complicated request. You know, obviously, and that's the real challenge with the public records request from a management perspective, is that you already have a staff, you know, pretty small staff in every department who are tasked with a lot of work to do. And there's a part of me that kind of hates to see all that grind to a stop while they maybe engage in a very detailed, protracted records
Well, I think the-
research. But
the
we do it, obviously, we have to
7 or
confirm.
5 days refers to letting them get an estimate or
Yes,
something.
right.
So it's
In
not
this
like
case, yes, that
all the
would
work
just
has
the
to be
estimate.
done.
Correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Did you have it? Any-
No, I think that's it.
Commissioner Boyce?
My question got answered, that's all. Thank you.
County Council, you want to chime in?
Sure, Mr. Chair. I'm looking up the statute on the timing of that, but I think that's just basically editing. The one question I did have for the county administrator, and it is under processing the request, and so the hierarchy it's the county administrator will appoint the public records custodian, and each department is going to have a public records manager. And then when we get into processing the request, it's initial assessment, and then it just says the staff person receiving the request shall learn as much as necessary about what records are being requested. So who is the staff person receiving the request from? The public, or the public records custodian, or the
Well-
public records manager? Who is that staff person? How does that work in the act? You know, how do you perceive that happening?
What page are you?
Sorry,
on
Mr.
there?
Chair, in our
Two.
packet, this is page 13. It is
What's the page
section
on?
Roman numeral 5, page 2 of the draft
Page 2,
policy,
okay.
under the heading of initial assessment.
Okay.
And so I'm just trying to figure out, you know, who is going to be that, what does that mean in this? Because we have public records custodian, we have public records manager at the department level, but then what's the staff person element there?
Well, I know currently, and Becky Ross is here, I know, Becky, you guys get probably most of them over in your office. So the thought there was that would be the person that had the initial contact with the member of the public. So the member of the public might go over to the county clerk's office, they might come to the BOC office, but let's say I'm the public records custodian, I'm not there, it would be John Jesuit. Or if they end up going to the assessor's office by mistake, it might be that. So the idea is that our staff would be trained to say, okay, you know, what are you looking for? And if it's something like, for example, it might be on our website, or a document that's just, you know, basically boom, right there available, or in just few minutes available, then that person would make that initial assessment. Or if they say, well, this looks a little bit more complicated, you need to submit a public records, written public records request. So that's my thinking there in that initial assessment. I don't know, Becky, do you have any further thoughts or comments on that?
You want to come up, please?
I guess my only concern is that the person that's going to be the head of this, the first contact person, right?
Well, no, not necessarily, because again, in my example, if I'm the public records custodian, obviously I won't be available at all times. So somebody, and it may be a little difficult to train it'll be on the website, you know, public records policy, how do you make a public records request, who's the public records custodian, that'll all be there. But I'm concerned that we'll still get people walking in, probably mostly coming to your office, that will not have read anything online.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I think our only concern has been that when someone submits a public record request to our office, whether it be for any of the other departments, they've started a dialogue with the county.
Right.
And then when we can get to it, and then we forward it on to the department, and from there, it's kind of up to the department. So
Right.
if it goes directly to the department, the dialogue gets better, I think. The response time, they can gauge their time better. And right now, we don't follow up on if anybody's
Right,
doing anything.
right,
We just kind of
right.
wait because it's really on them. But if there was a head person like you're suggesting, that would be awesome.
Okay.
Because then that person would know the rules that the state wants us to use and be making sure that it's regulated and followed. That would be good,
Okay, thank you.
right?
Any more
County
questions
Counsel?
for Becky?
Thanks. And so, if I understand what Becky Ross just said, I think I agree with it. And I'll give you an example. We have a risk management policy where if somebody wants to make a claim against a county, like they trip and fell or something like that, it requires all claims to go to the county council so that the staff doesn't have to do any analysis. They don't have to try to make an initial assessment. They simply get information, give it to county council. I think what I heard Becky Ross say is this initial assessment, the staff should get the information, but it seems like, and I agree with this, then all requests should go to the public record custodian. The public should be given one person, one point of contact, because if we don't do that, then we have more than just 21 different people. We have however many employees we have, different people. So I would prefer to just have a one-stop shop for public records, and I don't know that the way this is being described or written does that.
Well,
I don't know if that's, and I didn't mean to reinterpret or misstate what Becky was saying. And then the one other thing that might be missing in here, I'm sorry, John Hitt, I can't remember if I saw it, but we currently have oh, there it is. We have the email request. This is on this is Exhibit C on page 19. Again, that says, there's an email that says public records request at co.curry.or.us. And those go, I think, to the clerk's office as well. And what I would recommend is that those go to the public record custodian. And then if that's where it goes, that we have one person who's our public records custodian, anybody in the county gets a public records request, they shoot it over to that person sends off that we got your request, we have one accountable person, and then the clerk's office would have a public record, whatever it was called, manager. And that public record custodian would say, hey clerk's office, sorry, I don't mean to like, hey clerk, but anyway, would just say, Becky, Shelley, Renee, we have this request, can you help me find these? And so I see it almost as like the public record custodian is sort of like a project manager. I mean, it's a bigger fancy word for it, but and that, I think does a lot of what County Administrator Hitt's trying to do here is give the public, one person. Because that's the other thing. Where did it go? Who do I ask? There's a lot of that. So anyway, those are just my comments there. And John Hitt has his hand up. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That certainly is the intent of this policy. And if there is any ambiguity there, like under this Part 5 initial assessment, I'm happy to reword that to remove any ambiguity.
Commissioner Gold?
I agree with Councilor Huddle that we need to have one person responsible so that we can meet the deadlines
Yep,
and so
that's
forth.
the intent.
Any other, before I have comments, anybody else? This flow that's being discussed, has been, as a suggestion that I had, and I think others also, for years. I went so far as to say that that individual should be under the legal department, okay? And I think it still should be under that department for that custodian. I have a question for both, well, for the administrator first and then for county council, but primarily for Administrator Hitt. Have you reviewed the public records request log that is kept in the clerk's office to see? It's very enlightening as far as it's a short log. I just updated a couple weeks ago. Went in and asked Becky Ross for the last year and a quarter or something. From 2012, it's to 2017. It's, I don't know, a dozen or so, 14, 12, 13, 14 pages. It's very telling because you can, as far as who and the types of records, and it might give you a completely different perspective. We have some people that say how difficult. Well, the procedures made it difficult, in my opinion, not the types of requests, not the types of requests at all. And many of those requests could have and should have, but there was no custodian per se, stopped right before they ever started, because we've had some, and a lot of it was because of, not everyone in every department that we're going to call a manager of this or a manager of that needs to be completely up, and educated on the public records laws. The custodian does, and as does county council and yourself. But if you would look at those, I would really encourage you to get a copy of the 5 years or whatever it is. Look at them. It's very telling. There have been many cases where somebody outside of the county, they get them not too frequently, because there's not that many requests that come in each year. There's just not. There's not hundreds of requests that come in every year. But they'll get these blanket, sometimes from people that are agencies, entities, private entities. They're after whatever. If you're crazy enough to waste a lot of your time, we're happy to ask you for it, and not charge and not pay anything. If you're happy enough to do that, they could have been stopped. Many of them never should have gone forward, because the public records law permits the counties to charge for research, and normally that will stop them in their tracks. Or you give them an estimate for X number of dollars or hundreds of dollars, and certainly in some of these cases it would be hundreds and hundreds of dollars because of the magnitude, and it would never. If they're serious, that's fine, then you're paid to do it. But many of them would end it right there. I had a recent request from a citizen, a repetitive citizen, and they asked for, Becky's smiling, but they asked for vague information. It's like, if it takes you an hour, I don't have any problem with it as the requester. You send back a a response, you cite the statute, you cite that we are not the custodian, or I am not the custodian. We would be happy to research it further. You cite the statute that you will be, we have an obligation to do so, but you have an obligation to pay us for the time. So here's what it would be, and you never hear from the requester again. Many of them are like that. We've made it much more complicated and time-consuming than it should be. But I think to go through and just make sure, because County Council mentioned, we have a custodian, we have records managers, just so we're absolutely clear and consistent in that identification of what I think would be helpful, and it would be simple enough also, would be a little internal flow diagram. Where does it go? Okay. In so many of these cases, the custodian, again, to repeat, whom I believe should be in the legal department, okay, or the commissioner's office, but one of those two, and I think the legal department for sure would be knowledgeable, and I'm going to say 9 out of 10 requests, they would know right off, hey, this is no problem, this is where I'll send it, they can send it right back, we don't need to have the attorney review this, it's a simple request, maybe 95 out of 100 instead of 9 out of 10 would be that way. It's a very large percent that would not require anything further, and you could get to those shorter or defined times. We will do this within so many days, period. Okay. If you could just follow with me, if we go to page 2 of your draft, which starts with all requests to inspect. Okay. You get into Exhibit A or equivalent. That can get a little, define what's equivalent. But if you go to Exhibit A, okay, I think what had occurred here was that probably you just copied, I'm guessing, what the existing document was. Two things I would strongly urge is that, number one, we make these a fillable PDF form. Don't have them retyped, or each person, well, where's the template? Well, I don't know. Let me go find that. So we're wasting time trying to find. You have a fillable PDF form. You can't by law demand or require the requester to fill it out, but if you make it easy enough for them, that's what they would fill out on it, that form, if it's a fillable PDF. Okay. We have in here, again, it's or a phone number or something also. You have that generic whatever on the last exhibit was public records request stat. Okay. But if somebody on this form or multiple forms that you have, if there was a phone number contact, so a citizen could, rather than email or try and figure out, okay, am I going to have to go in and talk to somebody? Just pick up the phone and call and ask somebody. Ask that custodian. Okay, put the one office phone number down. It says Public Records Custodian Department. Okay, but that would again be identified right there where it's not now.
Yep.
While I'm talking about forms, there were some others here.
Mr. Chair, while you're looking,
Yes.
could I, on this form that we're looking at the bottom, it says Curry County will not process record requests without, these things. And I thought, John, you had incorporated or have a new $25, there was like a deposit as well.
Yeah.
Would you also say we also won't process them without the deposit?
Oh, yeah.
Would
Yeah.
that be part of that
You're correct.
as well?
Yeah,
Okay.
missed that.
Okay.
And there was somewhere in the Commissioner Boyce,
Oh, just, I think we've got a new direction here, a new policy. I don't see any need to spend any additional time on it. By your own admission, we have maybe 5 years and just a few pages, so is this a big issue in the county right now?
It's been a big issue ever since I've been involved
We're
with
taking
public
steps
records
to correct it.
requests. Oh, I'm
Which I
sorry?
we're taking steps to
Correct.
correct it, and so we'll bring this as an action item before the board fairly soon. I just don't think we need to spend a lot more time on it. We got other things, in my view, but carry on.
Okay, thank you, I will. Okay, on page 3, while we're talking about, under the fee estimate, the last sentence, and this has been the way it's been, but, county website link with latest fees. That verbiage has been there for the last 5 years, but there's never been a link that you could go to look at the fees.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
And never on it, but it needs to be on there. It will save
Right.
all sorts of questions in the. So again, at the top of page, what I'm calling page 2, it starts all requests to inspect, to just see if you can do anything further, and we can talk, aside from this meeting, as far as giving a little bit more definition to equivalent. On the on the number 6 at the top of that page, I had some issues with the deposit. I think there's some good things and some bad things about that. And, one doesn't necessarily fit all.
Right.
If a person, and where did you come up with the 20? Because if it's 25, if it's over 25 on an estimate, or there has to be an estimate per the statute, if it's going to
Right.
cost the
Right.
requester over $25.
Right. Well, I thought of 25. I just thought $20, particularly if somebody was coming up in person to fill out
Okay.
this form and
Or
turn
to
it
weed
in.
out the serious from the not
Yeah,
serious.
yeah,
Is that,
yeah. And
I
I also
look at
played
that
with
as
played with $10 and
as the
yeah.
main reason.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yes,
If you're not,
exactly. Plus, clearly, obviously, if we spend less than 20, we're going to refund
well,
the
sure,
difference. Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
But I think that would,
That was the idea.
amount would separate those that are serious and those that are not. And again, some further expansion in the text here as far as what the rights, or not the rights, but the chargeable fees are for searching, and that there may not be any records. And there's a statute section or subsection in there that says you may not even receive anything, but we're not going to spend an hour
Right.
of staff time looking for something that isn't there and not charge you anything.
Right, correct.
Again, the custodian is the critical one. They can make, whoever that individual is, can make life so much simpler for everybody. They can have certainly the autonomy to know, let's say, that it's something that the clerk has, okay, or any other department, but they would know in almost all cases where that record was, most likely, and just take care of it for them.
Right.
There. It doesn't need legal counsel review. Also on these routine requests towards the bottom of page 2, I think that it makes reference under routine requests, if applicable, the public records custodian should inform the requester that the documents are available on the county website free of charge. I assume you're referencing the commissioner's journals when you do that. Then I would put the link to the commissioner journals right there. Okay. Or
When you
somewhere
say
incorporated.
in this form when it's posted on.
Well, in the policy.
I mean, in the policy, yeah.
If-
We can
if
do that,
our
sure,
county
absolutely.
council.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, it could be a lot more in Commissioner Journals, like if they wanted copies of, planning department documents. I mean,
Sure.
So I think if we try to do,
Well, they reference the clerk's office.
Oh,
though.
I see.
It referenced
All
the
right.
clerk's office,
Okay.
and in the clerk's office,
okay,
with the Commissioner's Journal, you have around 15,000 public records that anybody can search and come up with. There's probably about at least 15,000 probably now, well over 10,000. And it's one link that would take people there. Because again, you've already referenced the clerk's website. While we're talking about the clerk, there's one other area, and I'm glad it's not incorporated, this way anymore, but there is a statute, 205.320, and that has been the reason for the basic $3.75 charge for every public record request. And it all goes back, it's not that each department has a legal statutory obligation to do that. It's only the clerk that has that. And because everything was going to the clerk's office, it sort of just seemed to flow down to everybody in every other department. But it's not required, other than by the clerk's office, and I'll give you that later.
Okay, thank you.
On page, I'm calling page 3 of your draft under County Council, I had some issues with C. Because again, I think this is such the exception to the rule. What it's saying, we're saying in addition to public records, or in B, the public records custodian shall consult county council whenever the request raises, unusual questions or concerns. Okay. Then C, prior to release of the public records request, the public records custodian shall submit the records proposed to be released. Now, again, at this point, there's already been payments been received. Okay, and that would be back to the flow diagram. What internal might help there. For county council to review and possible redaction, county council review shall be assessed at a rate of $3 per page of documents, or $50 per hour. I would argue on the $3. If I was a requester.
In what sense you mean that?
I would say that that's pretty pricey, I think. I can see an hourly charge or a portion of an hourly charge versus a per page. Yeah.
What got missed here was the lesser of. What I was trying to put in there is actually some protection if county council is able to look at let's say a 10-page document that if I'm the custodian, I'm proposing to release, and you say, oh yeah, this is just an ordinance, or it's just a resolution, or whatever. Oh yeah, and be just through his review really quickly. That way we have two options, so that the applicant, depending on whether each page requires a careful reading review by the county council, or it can be basically flipped through really quickly. So the intent there was to add whichever is less. So I can certainly do that on the final
could you not, though? Could you just do it on a per or a quarter hour, based on $50 per hour on an hour review with let's say a minimum, or not even a minimum, of a $50 rate versus get into a per page review?
That would be another option.
County Council, you have any comments on that?
Yeah.
I think currently I just track time and factor in, the existing hourly, which I thought was $35 an hour. I'd have to double check, but I just look at real time, and I bill legal standard as the 0.1, so in 6-minute increments.
Oh,
and then
okay.
I just submit that. I think I give it to Brenda, and she puts it in the pipeline.
Okay, I didn't realize he billed in that of increments. Okay, we can just strike that.
And again, I think that's going to be the extreme exception to
Agreed.
The norm in a public records request. County Council.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And I know you've said a couple of times, and also in the past, that you felt that the public record custodian should be under County Council's office. I think when I read through this, this satisfied you know, my concern. It sounded like this was going to require legal review on almost every request response. So it didn't. It satisfies that I don't think we need to have the custodian under county council necessarily. If they're going to, it looks like they'll be working so closely with the county council's office on these that it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other there. So just wanted to talk to that a little bit.
Okay. And I think I'd mentioned also somebody within, let's say, the commissioner, somebody that's close and interfacing certainly daily between those two offices.
Great.
And that on, I think for legal review, even on the old policy, it was like $57, my memory says, or something. The one I think the county council might be referring to, and if we go all the way down to the bottom of page 3, it says labor charges of $40 per hour. I think it was 39 or
It was like
something
we
like that.
established a rate.
But that's for, we just established a rate, and then in quarter-hour increments. But to their add to that the charges may apply even if no records are located, and there's a specific recital, if you will, in the public records manual to that effect. And again, that if it were in here and if it had been used in the past, it would have saved a lot of time. And I wasn't sure on, again, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bullets at the bottom of page 3. It was the 4th bullet where it said actual cost for use of material and equipment for producing copies of non-standard records.
Yeah.
Just for not, where did you come up with? Or
Well, I
what
think
the
that was in the current
rationale?
policy, but there have been incidents, not here, but I think primarily in the Portland area, where people have come in, made public records request, and they wanted it on a different now the agency can decline to make the record in a different format. Let's say it's on,
they're under no obligation.
right, under
it's
no
clear
obligation,
to do so.
agreed. Yeah, agreed. But I think the reason this probably got in there was just to give us the option, if you want it on a videotape and we only have it on a film, just to take an extreme example, and we have to buy a piece of equipment to transfer from video to film, you're going to pay for it, or vice versa.
Personally, I wouldn't even go there, but county council.
Oh, that's okay. I think I think that stuff will be on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I was looking at in here on the hourly charges, we're currently.
Where are you at?
I'm on the same page you are.
Oh,
You're in
okay.
the bullet points.
Okay.
It's not
Yeah.
in the bullet points, but we currently use CCECIT, and they charge us a higher hourly rate.
They do.
Correct.
150.
That's the longest acronym I ever heard.
CCECIT. Good job. Sure. They charge us a higher hourly rate than's listed in
That's
here.
true. I should
I
add
think
that.
it might say, for complex electronic database searches or something like that.
Included in the fee schedule.
That's what I mean. We
Mhm.
should add a bullet
Yeah.
about that. That
Yeah.
was all I was
Okay,
going to say.
they're-
but-
they're also
but
sure,
to describe
sure.
that. Yeah.
Agreed.
And then you had the compact disc, which is the 5th bullet down, is a CD or DVD.
Oh, yeah.
And the basic charge has been $5 for the CD or DVD plus the time to retrieve, at the hourly rates to retrieve the information. But I would suggest we leave or put the 5 back in, but then to
Agreed.
expand that's plus the time to be it IT or whoever to retrieve the information. You're paying on an hourly rate.
So just say plus research time.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was just an oversight. The $5 got dropped off.
And I guess internally, if you go to page 4 on the second under requester confirmation and payment, on the last sentence there, it says, when performing these duties, a public records custodian or her designees shall track the actual time. Okay, so if they're getting into that, okay. Where did you come up with, going down further, provide documents or space to review records? I think it was great that you first specified that I think it was the 5 days, you know, to initially respond, or six business days, or seven business days.
Yep.
Then you say, the public records custodian shall provide non-exempt records as promptly as the county can reasonably make them available. There we have define promptly and define reasonably, but no more than 20 business days. So are we saying that it would be still 3 weeks for even really rudimentary?
No, not for the rudimentary.
Okay,
this
this
is
is
only
for
the more complex,
complicated
yes.
ones. Okay,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Requester. And again, internally, it's going to, on any of the more complex ones, and to get to the next sentence there, in parentheses, you say the requester shall pay any actual expenses incurred over the deposit amount before the county makes the records available. And then goes on, if it's an overpayment, what's occurred in the past on some of these requests, and again, it's been consumption of a lot of time that shouldn't have been consumed, is they would, because there were so many different people as custodians, you know, every department, and there was even some latitude of department heads could waive certain things under many minutes, and it had nothing to do with whether it was in the best interest of the county or not. But they would spend, some people would spend hours, not just 1 hour, but hours. They would get all the records together, and then they would go. And the time had already been spent. Nobody paid for a deposit or anything. I think you want to clarify, so no custodian or the custodian, whoever the custodian interfaces with in whatever department, you know, subject department is the subject of a request. You don't want to research and gather, make photocopies, whatever the case may be, for all those records, and then at that point know how much it's going to cost. And send it then to the requester and say, this is how much it's going to cost. You want to send a low and a high estimate.
Correct.
And not do any of that unless in this case, the high estimate is paid to proceed.
So,
Yep.
yeah, thank you. So what was in my mind here was that somebody submitted a public records request, let's say with the assessor. I'm aware, I get the copy of the request, is forwarded to me. I realize it's more than just a routine, relatively simple. It's going to take some research. So, and let's say it's something, a record that's in the clerk's department. And if Becky is the records manager, and I'm not saying, not giving you that duty yet, Becky, but a records manager for the clerk's office, I would call up Becky and I said, I'm pretty sure this document's probably in your office, or these documents, give me an estimate of how long you think it would take and what you'd have to do to ferret these guys out. And then that would be within that initial 7-day period. And then she would probably tell me, well, probably at least 2, but maybe up to 5. So yes, so my estimate within that 7-day would include, well, it's going to be the minimum of this, but quite possibly could go as high as.
Are you going to Exhibit B when you say,
Yes.
Isn't that what's created at that point?
That's correct. That's exactly correct.
And I also would highly recommend that we use a fillable PDF form on that.
We can do that.
So that all the forms are the same. Yep, please.
I would like you guys to consider that $20 deposit thing. Seems more complicated than say, and also our office, people have access, they can come in, so they probably won't go through you, but, so say somebody asks for something and it's only $4 or it's $4.25, and then we have to refund their money. And if it's only coming through email and it's coming from out of a state, a different state or something, we're gonna have to file a claim to send back their money because we've received in this money. And also the whole government thing is we're taking in $20 for actually nothing yet. I like the idea where you're gonna say it's a high and low. So it's gonna be somewhere between here and here. Is this something you wanna get into? Do it that way instead of receiving money from somebody and then, you know, we don't come through with it, and I don't know. It just sounds,
Do you spend a lot of time back and forth getting this money back if they don't want it, type of
well,
thing?
we haven't asked for deposits.
This is new, correct?
Oh,
It's
okay.
good.
This would
It's
be
a
new,
new,
yeah.
new idea, but I don't know, I see it getting kind of messy. And, finance office has to get involved in that too, when they want to send the money back, and I don't know how you're gonna do that, but.
Maybe you could work, you know, close, you
Right,
know,
right.
outside of the meeting here with,
Right.
with Becky on
Yep.
that also.
Yep.
But good point. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Then collect the fee, the deposit.
You guys, they don't. It's by the time you get a response to them, but I like the 20-day and the 5-day
Yep.
because it's sooner than later.
Mhm.
Because later, sometimes they're like, yeah, I'm moving on to something else.
Yep. And on that form also, Exhibit B, I would include the date of the actual request when it was received. This
Okay.
is, you're putting here in this the date that the document's being created with the estimate. But to put, so we're on notice.
Yep.
And if it's longer
Yep.
than that, the flag should go up. Why? Why did it take longer than
That's
that?
right.
Okay.
Yep.
On
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Boyce,
how much longer are we going to be on this issue? Do you have some sense?
I would say, well, we're on page 4 or 5, probably 10 to 15 more minutes.
Well, we're already at 50.
Okay.
Pretty close, excuse me. And we have a more important item, in my view, on the agenda. So, can we wind it up here, wind it down?
We'll wind it up when we wind it up, Commissioner Boyce.
Sure.
On it. And
Commissioner
this
Gold.
is very important to a lot of people on it, and it needs to
We
be.
don't have a problem,
Okay.
do we?
I think we do.
Uh-huh.
So, did you have any other?
It's just a sad state when this is our priority, when we got 200,000 acres burned up, and I need your help for this county. We spent an hour on this, maybe more. Commissioner Gold, is this also the position you think we should carry on here?
Well, actually, we're coming up with a very important policy, and I think we need to get it right. And as long as we're doing a workshop, we have the time to do that, so. I'm willing to spend 15, 20 minutes more. We've done that on other issues that
Okay.
everybody has their idea of what's important.
Now on page 4, under 6 miscellaneous, A, says disclosure format, the county may make available or provide records in hard copy or in electronic format. Electronic documents will be provided in either PDF or TIFF. Basically, the law says that that the requester can request the document electronically in any format that it is available that the county has. So it's not that if it's in a Word document format, it's a public record, they can request that. So I wouldn't get too bogged down specifying, and especially a TIFF, you have JPEGs, you
Well,
have
right.
on and on and on. And again, it's not that the county is not, or the custodian is not obligated to create a new record
That's true.
for a request. but they are obligated to provide the record in whatever format or formats it does exist within the county. Again, and if we go to page 5 of the document, this makes reference to, on D, the request log, which again is very telling on it. And to repeat, would encourage you to get a copy and look at that. And I think it needs some rewording in the request log, given that there would be a custodian, a specific custodian. And I wouldn't, well, I guess you could, I wouldn't go so far in the policy to say the request log and all associated records shall be retained in accordance with the Oregon State Archive schedule. Was that probably in the original policy?
I believe it was, yeah.
I don't think it's necessary. And county council can, you know, whenever, you know, outside of the meeting, you know, comment on that.
Thank you.
And each department confirm their applicable record retention schedule with the Oregon State Archive. I'd remove both those sentences. Under E, resources, it's now the 2014.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if that's a good link anymore. And the 2018 is scheduled to come out hopefully the first quarter. It's in the final draft stages now. And their hope is that it will be out the first quarter of 2018.
I was going to follow up with John Hittoff after the meeting on that as well.
Okay, and I have some additional, they are looking at actually changing the wording in the Public Records Manual. They all agree. I've communicated back and forth with the archivists and the DOJ fellow that's responsible for making the changes, and they agree that it needs to be changed. So that's a good thing. On other F, district attorney, there is also, yes, if a request is denied to provide a record, the individual requester has the option to ask for review from the district attorney. I'm not sure what the statute is yet. We're missing a couple of numbers here. ORS 192.4. Or something. And they also have a form that they have. And even that would be great to include here and create a fillable PDF, you know, although it's probably, it might happen once every few years that somebody requests it, but have it there, have the form. I think you've worded this, drafted it, so those things can be changed without bringing the policy back. Interface with the DA and have that. That would save them going back to their research to find where it is and then send a mediocre photocopy to somebody that wants to do it. Just and Exhibit A. And then verify if that is a good on Exhibit C, if that's a good email address. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I didn't go through and update those in detail, but we will certainly
So those
do
are
that.
my comments. And I'd be happy, you know, again, outside of the meeting, when you do get all those changes, if you send us individually a copy and then, you know, meet with you and or county council to go over all those changes, because I think there's a lot here.
So then my question, would you want this, and we may not have time, particularly if I were to redraft this and then send it to the three of you for further comment, So I don't think I'd have time to put this on your November 15th.
Oh, no,
Yeah,
no, I
okay,
would-
so you're okay with a later meeting?
Whatever time is needed to do
Okay.
it right.
Okay. That works for me.
Did anybody else have any comments, or Commissioner Boyce?
No, just these two gentlemen are $50, $60, $70 an hour plus, and I just see that as very invaluable time. Almost a waste. They have a proposal. They've worked hard on it. We need to just get it done. And it's just sad to see that's where we spend our time for, yeah, almost an hour. So, a mild protest, Mr. Chair.
Protest.
Very expensive.
Becky, did you have any other comments or suggestions, or, okay, and you certainly feel free to
Yeah, thank you, Becky.
interface. I think that would be a good way to do
yeah,
it.
good input, thanks.
County Council, anything or no?
Nothing further,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
No?
Thank you.
I'm good,
Okay.
thanks.
Thank you. So, then we are going to move to what was item 3, and we switched it to HB House Bill 3435, loaning road funds. And it is 10:01. Administrator Hitt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. You have in your agenda packet, besides an introductory or overview memo, you have the actual copy of House Bill 3435, as well as a copy of an email that I believe was sent to all of you, or at least to John Huddle, from Representative David Brock Smith, as well as the Legislative Council concerning the Legislative Council's opinion regarding the efficacy of any potential citizens' vote on this matter. In summary then, House Bill 3435 grants to the local governing body the authority to lend to other governmental agencies, port districts, school districts, etc., monies, and it says from federal sources, in the county load fund. The only limitation of such lending, at least in the bill, is that that it cannot exceed the debt service abilities of the receiving district. The district or agency getting the loan must demonstrate the ability to service that debt, i.e. sufficient tax revenues to pay the debt back, and that term of the debt cannot exceed 20 years. Curry County currently has approximately $33 million in its road fund, earning a blended rate of interest of about 1.46%. There are, based on the discussion we had last time, other Curry County governmental agencies that either are in need of long-term funding, and by long-term here I mean 3 years or longer, or have existing long-term loans or bonds at relatively high rate of interest. Curry County could, if it chose to do so, provide some form of debt relief to those agencies that either are looking to obtain funding that they can't obtain on their own, or already have funding, but it's a very high rate of interest, assuming they could pay that higher rate bonds or loans off and borrow from the Curry County Road Fund at a lower rate of interest. And again, I already mentioned there's some question as to the efficacy or ability to bind an initiative or referendum if approved by the voters. So the options are direct council to proceed with some type of ballot title, and you would have to kind of give him direction as to what exactly that ballot title might call for. That could then be submitted to the voters. Due to required advertising, that would have to be done at the very, very latest by February 16th. Obviously, you could take no action, just let the existing situation continue. There's certainly no obligation in that bill for you to, at some future time, approve any road fund loans. You could direct staff to prepare an ordinance for consideration at a future meeting that could limit or circumscribe any potential future loans, i.e. as far as the term of the loan, as far as credit value of the person or the agency, not person, but agency requesting the loan, as well as minimum interest rates, etc. Now again, obviously any ordinance to that effect that you might pass could be overturned by a future Board of Commissioners. Or you could direct staff to simply obtain more information, find out what agencies that are currently in Curry County that might be interested in such a loan, how much, what their borrowing capabilities are as far as credit ratings, as far as available revenues to pay back any such loan, and a potential term of loan that they might be interesting or they might be appealing to them, as well as seek further information about what the other counties that are eligible to make these loans that were included as part of House Bill 3435. That is Klamath counties and Yamhill County. Klamath County, Yamhill County. So those are, I believe, the options before you. My recommendation is basically give staff some more time to do a little bit more research on this, perhaps bring it back either for additional workshop discussion or at a future regular general Board of Commissioners meeting. Time frame for that, and my estimation would probably the earliest we could bring back anything substantive to you would be December, and maybe even more realistically in January of next year. So that's all I have.
Commissioner Boyce, you have any questions or comments?
Yes, thank you. When you say maybe additional staff time, what specifically would you be reviewing and researching there? Would it be for a vote before the people? Is that
no? The purpose of a good question, Commissioner. Thank you. No, the purpose of my doing research would be to contact other governmental agencies in Curry County, basically an inquiry. Would you be interested in a possible loan fund road? If so, how many dollars might you, interested as in right now, that is, how many dollars would you think you might want? Or is there existing loan that you could pay off at a certain rate of interest? What is that rate of interest? What would you think would be a comfortable or a feasible, practical rate of interest for you to pay us if we were to make you a loan fund? And then also contact those other two counties to see if they've taken any action on their part in regard or in response to this House bill. I don't think it would take a lot of time. I mean, you're probably talking, I'm guessing, maybe all told 6, 7, 8 hours of staff time.
Running by the other counties, I think, is a very good approach, and I will actually be doing that a little bit. And they seem to be fairly enthused right now between Yamhill and Klamath. I'm a proponent of this bill. We're, if I may, Mr. Chair, we have some serious problems in our county, and one of them certainly, as we're an aging community, the 56-year average or median age. One of the biggest problems we have is no emergency services in South County. And the notion that, if I can be very direct, the notion that somehow we might have a hospital in South County, satellite or otherwise, just isn't going to happen for years and years. Certainly the argument can be made that 20 years ago, yeah, with the population down there, perhaps the hospital should have been in South County, but now we have a fabulous facility. I see there's an option and opportunity to bring the county together. This bill was designed to give and assist the road fund reserves with a better return. Just a few months ago, they were getting, what was it, 88 or 0.88 of 1%, and getting a little better now, like 1.2. This is a very comprehensive bill that does protect the road fund reserves from any potential bad loans, at least reasonably low risk. So it's a chance to help the county. You know, one example I could give you, Commissioner Gold might appreciate this. Let's just say that Cape Fear Fire District needs a new fire truck. Well, there isn't any reasonable money out there right now. this is just an example. And if they could get that loan at 3% and it's paid properly and routinely through their taxing district resources and able to pay the county back, the road fund reserves back, that's what this bill is set up for. And if it's 2% over what they're getting, 3.5%, it's just a good opportunity for our different districts. 47, I think, is the number we have. It's, as far as going for the voters, I just see and I said it last week, and it's no surprise that this is an administrative job. And you spelled that out pretty well last meeting when we discussed this. So it's part of our job, and it's something we could do, and I hate to go another 6 or 8 months without emergency facility down there. I'm not exactly sure where Curry Health Network is right now. They certainly have some issues, as do any public entity. But I think that there's some real merit into using this bill to the advantage of the county, and the resources are there. Certainly would be a good deal for the road fund reserves. So I think you see some support coming, and it's just a great option that we now have. And this bill was specifically designed for those 3 counties, as you know, and should be an excellent avenue for Curry County to do some good business. And so I'm hoping the board will look at that and get on board. That's all for now.
Commissioner Gold, do you have any comments?
I guess some of my real concerns is the interest rate. We would have to negotiate that. Just because someone's paying 10% somewhere else, why should we give it to them for 2%? Number one. Number two, what is this going to be secured by? What is the credit rating of the entity? I would also like to see if any loan were to be put out there, it needs to be a unanimous decision by the board and have some sort of in that ordinance or whatever we put forth, either a maximum amount that we loan or percent of the road fund that we could loan. And I'm also concerned about the term of the debt. And one of the reasons I'm concerned about this is because if we had an event in Curry County where the road's washed out or whatever, and this happens all the time, if we have our money loaned out, we can't get that money back to take care of our roads. So I think we have to be very, very careful on this item.
You have any other comments?
No, I think I've said it all.
Commissioner Boyce?
Well, I don't agree that it happens all the time. Yes, we had a major fire, we had a major sinkhole, but if it's something that disastrous, let's say the Pistol River Bridge, which definitely needs repair, maybe even replaced. If if that bridge goes out, FEMA will step in. That's their job, and it's not that we're exposed at an unnecessary risk there. So why would we go to a taxing district and give them a good rate of interest? Because we have solved problems, because we have to help them. And there's a lot of them need help. Yeah, the whole idea is to give them a loan that's workable and solves their problem for them. And as a board, we have that authority to set that rate. I do like your idea of perhaps unanimous on that. I think that certainly has merit. I think that's all I have for now. I think this is sound business. I know the county doesn't really want to be a bank, nor does the county road department. But in this case, to help taxing districts that have reasonable and projects with good legitimacy, I don't know anybody on this board that's going to approve something that is too high a risk or not sound. I know I wouldn't.
Mr. Hipp, do you have any other? comments,
Yeah,
or-
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just briefly, what the various factors Commissioner Gold mentioned for security, debt rating, or excuse me, credit rating, interest rates, etc. Excuse me, could all be encompassed as per option 3 that was in my memo in a future draft ordinance. And same thing with the unanimous vote feature. So that would be a possibility to craft an ordinance that would address those issues if you wish to see such an option.
County Council, do you have any comments? Or
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. We talked about this a little bit, I think, at a board meeting a bit ago. I don't really have anything to add as far as, you know, the ballot measure issues and things. But the one question, you know, the thought I had is, if we were going to, you know, contemplate going forward and doing some of this lending, I would want to have some level of professional assistance, as far as, you know, Commissioner Gold listed, as County Administrator said, several items. The statute, I think, says that we would have reasonable security measures in place to protect the interests of the county. We haven't done a lot of this lending before, and so I would want to confer with somebody in the field for their advice on, you know, what should we, you know, put into the terms and things like that. But you know, that's basically just due diligence and commercial reasonableness. So.
okay. Commissioner Boyce?
I really appreciate that because, and I think it goes without saying, because we're not a bank and we're not qualified. But doing the due diligence, I think, is on board. And as far as the specifics of the bill, it is very solid on what that security is. And it's through the taxing district resources. And I don't, you know, we have a 10-year, and that could come back. We're not doing that right now, but the road fund reserves have been under 10-year CDs in the past. So that's a long term. I wouldn't want to go anything more than 10 years. I think, if I understood correctly, you were basically suggesting that a 5-year would be probably the maximum you would be comfortable with. I don't.
Most
I
likely.
think that's what I heard you say.
Yeah.
I don't want to put words in your
Yeah,
mouth.
most
but
likely 5
I
to
just,
7.
So I just want to secure the board that the security within this bill has gone through the Oregon Legislative Legal Counsel system, and I just want to offer that it is sound, very sound.
Okay. Anyone else before I have to make some comments? Or? Yeah, I have a question for both Administrator Hitt and County Council. Have either, there was a workshop on May 31st of this year on investments in general, treasurer investments. It had to do with the road fund.
Oh, yes.
Were either, I know Administrator Hitt, you weren't even here. Are you aware of that, and have you viewed the 40-minute video on that particular topic and reviewed and read the about 30-page PowerPoint presentation that was presented by primarily by the finance director / treasurer of Jackson County? She serves a dual role. She commented that, you know, she was, confident in investing their funds in certain ways because she has a master's degree in finance, okay, as the treasurer and finance director. Are you aware, or have you seen those?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, no, I have not.
I would.
Well, let me add just one thing briefly.
Encourage you.
I would agree, and I will do that.
Okay.
But let me add too, I have had several discussions with the county treasurer, so I at least have a handle on what her investment policy guidelines are, and I also have a handle on where the fund, or how the funds are currently invested.
And before I ask the question to County Council, because he was not present at that meeting either, okay? When you say you've recently talked to the treasurer, as far as there's a standard state pool that has typically been where those funds have been invested. Is that what you mean when you had spoken with her on that, or?
Right. They're all there except for $2 million, which are invested in short-term U.S. government bonds,
So
which
that-
mature, I think, in like 18 months.
That was a result of the presentation, I take it?
Well, that was my understanding, yes.
Okay.
But I don't know that for sure, but
That was very recent conversation that you had?
yes, probably, week to 2 weeks ago.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Let me just put a note here.
Were they short-term or long-term bonds?
Short-term.
Okay.
As I said, I believe it was 18-month maturity.
Okay. I wouldn't touch long-term bonds.
Well, I wouldn't either.
Wouldn't touch them. In fact, I'd be real suspicious of short right now.
County Council, the same question. Did you happen to review the video or the PowerPoint from the meeting that you were not present at?
I did not review it, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I will get you, here's the PowerPoint, but I have the electronic version. It gets into, and also in this, there was a recommendation by as I think the finance director / treasurer said, one of the trusted financial entities that she uses, one of 4 that Jackson County uses for their investments. The specifics, it gets into the specific statutes, ORS 294, but more specifically 294.035, and then that refers to a few other within 294 statutes, and it's very, very clear as far as the length, the types, the ratings, AA, AAA, minimum. They want liquidity. The last thing, and they addressed it specifically in this. At LGPIP was the pool. They addressed specifically in this presentation that yield. We talk about yield, and they said yield is the last priority of any investment portfolio. This is per the statutes get into this, okay? The number 1 objective after the legality is, in capital letters, safety. They said liquid and safe, and they get in very specifically into the Moody's and one other,
S&P standard
ratings, and it's double,
right.
the top of the top ratings, nothing else. They get into the time, typically from muni bonds to corporate bonds to CDs, but maximum they're saying is like 18 months. This is permitted, in the rules. It's that stringent as far as the requirements. It's well worth reading on the Chapter 294. There's 035 subsection 040, 135, 145, and 155, and these are referred to in these readings also. And the again, I can't overemphasize their emphasis and reference back to the statutes. What is a acceptable risk? And it's little to no risk. And most of these, they also require that there be government, that they be a lot of them be insured on top of that. And you get that sometimes in your municipal bonds, where you buy a AA or AAA, and you pay even sometimes a premium to buy only AA, AAA insured bonds because of the safety. But the concern here, we've talked about, you know, as long as they're able to have the available income as a tax district from taxes, but you can have some of these tax districts, such as the hospital, you know, it's been referenced, so I'll use it as an example, that are unable to borrow any additional money from any reputable, legitimate, you know, very reputable lending, you know, or financial institution because of the amount of debt now and the capacity to service the debt. But so I encourage, highly, strongly encourage that you review these, because I think it would lend or paint a little different picture on what we're talking about as far as who you loan money to, because you are investing, in a sense, you are investing the money. You hold yourself to those same conditions, and I expect that would be the case here. This legislation doesn't say you can just loan to anybody.
Of course,
That you hold to the same conditions, and that would be extremely limiting in the number of public entities that would be capable of that would meet those minimum requirements. So that would be my request. Administrator Hitt.
I will definitely review that presentation. I'll definitely carefully review all the ORSs. And obviously whatever the ORSs say, we obviously have to follow and would follow and will follow. Let me just make a generic comment, though. I've been involved with municipal bond issuances on both sides, on the investor side and on the municipality side. Lots and lots of them over my career. And I totally agree with everything you're saying in general principle. Obviously, you want to focus on safety first, no question. You want to be very aware of what the credit rating and the ability to repay of the institution or organization you're making the loan to. But with that said, yes, there are potentially insurance options. You already mentioned that. But there are, and whether we could apply them in a road fund loan or not, I don't know, but I will certainly find out. If that's, at least in theory, it's an option. It may not be practically an option. And the second is just a general observation that while there have been some famous municipal bond defaults in the last 20, 30 years, the actual percentage of municipal bond defaults is very, 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 very low. So, and again, any underwriting organization, whether it be Merrill Lynch or you know, whoever you want to pick as a municipal bond underwriter, obviously they go through these steps.
That's why the percents
right.
are so low.
That's why the percents are so
Exactly.
low. And I would expect that if we were to follow a similar policy, we would go through very similar steps.
Commissioner Boyce, did you have your hand up?
No, I was just scratching.
Okay. Commissioner.
So I don't
we'll
know.
Go there, Commissioner Boyce.
I'm not sure. I don't think you're speaking for Curry Health Network, but I don't think we know the inside baseball on exactly where they are financially. If we're looking for absolutely no risk, that's not how life, business, public entities work. There will be risk on anything. What we do know is that people in South County, 14,000, trying to get to Gold Beach or Crescent City in an emergency situation, some of them will die because we don't have that available on Fifth Street. I don't mean to be a dog with a bone, but it is available, it is ready, it just needs, you know, maybe $1 million, maybe $2 million maximum out of a $33 million project that is well secured. I can't imagine why we wouldn't take a very serious look at that. And that's what we're hired to do on this board. That's our job. Thank you.
Any other comments? Or?
No.
So do you want some direction?
Oh, yes. So I would prefer either, there's really three possible ways of direction. If you want to proceed with some type of voter referendum or initiative, then that would be option one. And to have John Huddle prepare some type of proposed ballot referral for you, and it could be even several different options of ballot titles or ballot referrals. You could take option three, direct staff to prepare an ordinance, which would include many of these sideboard restrictions that and limitations that we've already talked about today. Or you could take option four, just simply direct us to get some more information, A, as to what other counties, the other two counties may be doing in this regard, and B, maybe contact some of them like the Curry Health Network and some of the other ones that may possibly be interested in borrowing, and under how much, what terms would they find acceptable, how much interest rate would be that would be of interest to them, and then maybe also get some preliminary information at least as to their credit worthiness, their ability to repay, that kind of thing. So that would be option four. Or whatever option you guys want to direct.
I think option four is kind of putting the cart before the horse. I think we need to come up with specifics in an ordinance.
Okay.
What we want in that ordinance before we even go out contacting individuals or entities to see about loaning them money. Because I would want to see an ordinance at the very minimum. I'm not sure taking it to the voters is the best route right now. It would be nice to know what they think. I'm but would it be we're ultimately the ones that make the decision, and whether if new commissioners come in, they could override any ordinance, of course. So, and certainly they could override the voters' preferences.
So you want to be clear, a little bit clearer
I
then
think
for us on?
Going for an ordinance with specific specifications, maybe having, if we're going to vote on a loan, having it be unanimous vote. Talk about interest rates, how the loan would be secured, what about their credit rating, all of this that I mentioned earlier. I think those specifics should be in the ordinance before we even go out and look at people to lend money to.
Would that expand into what the presentation was, the PowerPoint, and what the laws
I think that
dictating? I don't see how you could do it without that.
Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you. I'll just conclude. It is an excellent bill, and the more I read it, the more I'm thankful we have this opportunity. As far as going before the citizens, just a little bit of caution probably isn't the right word, but just a little insight. Let's say let's go back to the Cape Ferillo Fire District, and they needed $300,000 for a new truck, a fire truck, or whatever they need to do to improve their facilities. We want to go to the voters every time on something like that. That's why I think that's our job. And again, emphasizing the minimum of 6 months on the assumption it would get voter approval, and then we would ultimately have the final say anyway. So I'm just going to implore the board to look closely at this law, the security that is with it, and look at how we can help our county. It's a great opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, I would certainly concur, but I would like to see you come back with another workshop.
Oh, okay.
I don't think we want to bring that to a general meeting. There's too many unknown.
I think there's a lot to
staff
discuss.
will learn.
Big item.
Or review, research.
Okay.
So are we, and I think we want to do it not to rush things, but to do it right.
Mm-hmm.
So I would put the date back to you.
Okay.
or if you want to get, you know, maybe at the next meeting, have time to have done a little so you can, rather than give us a date right now,
Right,
come back to us with a date, not
I would
not
probably
required.
prefer that.
Okay, so you come back to us. Commissioner Boyce.
Yeah, I just want to accelerate this. I don't want to lose 2 months, so I don't want to use the holiday season as an option or even an excuse to delay this for a couple months. Let's get down to business and figure out if there's something as a board we can unanimously agree on, and then see what districts are out there that may or may not want to ask for help. Let's just don't delay. Let's make it. Should be a very high priority in our overall responsibilities here for the next couple of months.
Okay, so you will come back at the next this is a
I will.
question, at the next general
Yes.
meeting and have a specific
I will.
date, okay. Any other comments on this
Nope.
item? And I think that said, it's 10:35, we will adjourn the workshop.
Board, thank you, by the way, for agreeing. I won't ask very often on this 9 o'clock deal, but that was appreciated. Thank you.
Did we get out soon enough for you?
Okay.
Let's see, we're